If you want to do the test at the beginning to see whether you'll have 1, 2, or no solutions, we still do b times the sine of a, and if it's smaller than a, remember if it's bigger than a, it's no solution. If that value is smaller than a, but a is still smaller than b, then you'll end up with 2 solutions. So you can run this test. And again, you don't have to have the letters A, B, and C. What it means is the capital A is whatever angle you were given, lowercase a is the side across from that angle, and lowercase b is any other side of the triangle that they happen to give you. So we're going to do some examples and take a look at what happens when there's 2 solutions. So again, in all of these, we'll be working with case 2, and where we end up
with 2 solutions. So again, we could do the test. What are we given? We're given a and angle a, and then the side C. So when you take the side that's not opposite our angle, in this case C, times the sine of our given angle, in this case angle A, and we want to find that value and then compare it to the side that we have. So let's start with that. So our side that's not opposite the angle is 7, sine of the angle, which is 30. If we use our calculator, we get 3.5. Then we take a look and compare it to the parts we have. Now if it were bigger than our opposite side, it would be no solution. But notice it's smaller. 3.5 is smaller than 6. So C sine A is smaller than A. Okay. And then go, okay, how does it compare to the other side, which is C? Well, it's smaller than that. And when we have this case, you know there's 2 solutions. Drawing ourselves a little diagram. A, B, and C, and our opposite sides. Now the angles don't matter where they are as long as you put the right sides opposite them. Okay. Alright, the pieces we have are C is 7. We don't have side B, but we do have side A is 6. And we do know the angle A is 30. Alright, what we're going to start with is the law of sines. We have A and angle A, so that's the ratio we'll start with in solving. A over sine A, and then we want to match up with something we have part of, which in this case is C. Okay. So we're going to do C sine C. Putting in our information, we have A is 6, the sine of angle A, which was 30, equals C, which was 7, over the sine of angle C. We don't know that, so we'll just leave it as a C. Now we're going to solve. So we go ahead and cross multiply. We get 6 times the sine of C equals 7 times the sine of 30. And then we divide both sides by 6. And I get that the sine of C is equal to 7 times the sine of 30 over 6. Go ahead and put that in your calculator. So we know the sine of C equals 0.58, which is less than 1, so we know we have a solution here. Okay, I'm going to leave that number in my calculator, and we do the arc or inverse sine of both sides to get C by itself. Okay, so that gives me the angle C is inverse sine of 0.5833. Again, I just left that in my calculator so I'd have the most exact answer and did the inverse sine of the number. And that gives me about 35.7 degrees for my angle. I'm going to go ahead and round to the nearest tenth. All right, so how can we have 2 solutions? I have one of my answers. I know angle C is 35.7. but if you remember back on the unit circle, there's another angle that is a possibility, because remember that sine is positive in the first and the second quadrant. So not only is 35.7 have the sign of positive 0.583, but also its reference, the one it's a reference angle for in the second quadrant, that's 35.7 away from the x-axis there, also has that same sign. So it's possible that we also have a second case. So on the left side, I'm going to deal with case 1, and the right side, I'm going to deal with case 2. Case 2, we're going to say it's the other angle in quadrant 2. So to find that, we take 180 minus the reference angle of 35.7, and I get the angle 144.3. So case 1 is that C is 35.7. Case 2 is that C is 144.3. Okay, let's go from there. So we now have 2 cases to solve. Case 1, we're still missing parts. We have our angle of 35.7 for C, but we're missing angle B and the side length for B. We can find angle B because we know the angles in a triangle add to be 180, and I now have 2 out of the 3 angles. So I can go ahead and do 30, and I have 35.7. That's what I have so far in the triangle. So if I add those together, I have 65.7 degrees so far. Subtract that from 180 to get what's left. And I get 114.3. So B is 114.3. I have one piece left to find, and that's my side B. So I'm going to use the law of sines, and I'm going to go back to A and sine A because those were given. I haven't done any rounding, so those will give me the most exact answers. So A over sine A equals B over sine B. I now know angle B is 114.3. So I put in the parts I know. I know A was 6, sine of 30, B over the sine of 114.3. We want to solve for B, so I'm going to multiply both sides by the sine of 114.3. Sorry, it's getting a little bit messy here. We have 2 cases. There's a lot of calculating. So we get 6 times the sine of 114.3 over the sine of 30. Go ahead and take out your calculator and multiply 6 times the sine of 114.3 and then divide that by the sine of 30. And for our answer, we'd get that B is 10.9. So for case 1, we end up with C being 35.7, B being 114.3, and lowercase b being 10.9. That's one of our answers. We have another correct answer. We did get a sign that works, but we know that we have a reference angle in the other quadrant. Okay, remember it has that same positive sign. The way you can check to make sure that this still works out is take your angles you know, 144.3, put it in the triangle with the parts you have. Okay, this is case 2, so I'm starting fresh again. I'm just saying I know angle A is 30. I don't know angle B. And what if C is 144.3? Check to make sure. And make sure that you're not going over 180 degrees and that there's room for a third angle in that triangle. And if you do that and you add those together, you get 174.3, so there's still a little room left for an angle B. Okay, so let's find out what that angle is is and what it's left is tiny, but it's there. We do that, we get 5.7 degrees. So angle B is tiny in this case. It's 5.7. All right, we're going to finish this out. So case 2, we're almost done. We found angle C, we found angle B. Now we need to find the side length B. Again, go back to the parts you were given, A and sine A. Again, less rounding you have to do, the more accurate your answers will be. Okay, so A is 6. We know angle A is 30. But for B, we don't know. And sine B in this case was 5.7. Multiply both sides by the sine of 5.7 to solve for B. So our answer is going to be 6 times the sine of 5.7 divided by the sine of 30. We just calculate that and we come up with 1.2, which is fairly small, but it should be because its angle across from it was fairly small. So we have two answers. Case 1 is B is 10.9, angle B is 114.3, and angle C is 35.7. Our second answer, and they are both correct and you need to include both, angle C is 144.3, angle B is 5.7, and side B is length 1.2. They take time, of course, they're doable. Okay, if you want to try to work this one out yourself and then push play to see how you did, that's great. Or if you want to follow along, that's fine as well. Again, we're working with case 2 where we have two sides and one opposite angle. And again, you might want to check to make sure how many solutions you have. Do you have 1? Do you have 2? Do you have no solution? Again, you do the side that's not opposite your angle, in this case C, times the sine of the angle we're given, which was A in this case. So here we have 16 times the sine of 35. We do C times the sine of angle A. We calculate that and we get 9.18 approximately. Notice it's smaller than A, so I know it's not no solution. There will be a solution at least. So C times sine A is smaller than A, but A is smaller than that third side C. 9.8 is less than 10, which is less than 16. When that happens, you are going to have two solutions, and you do need to find both solutions. You don't have to do the test, you can still solve without it. You just have to make sure you check to see if you have two solutions. I sketched my triangle out here. Now, A is 35, the side opposite is 10. I don't know angle B or angle C, but I do know this side across for C is 16, and I do not know side B. We're going to go ahead and jump in there, try to find our angle, use the pieces we know, which are A and angle A. So A over sine A is what I'm going to start with. We're given C, so C, angle C is what I'll have to find first. So C over sine C. We know A is 10. We know the angle A is 35. Don't know my angle C, but I do know the side C is 16. So we have 16 over the sine of C, and we want to solve for angle C. Okay, in this situation, we want to get sine C by itself first, and then we'll do inverse sine to solve. So cross multiply gives me 10 times the sine of C equals 16 times the sine of 35. Divide by 10, and as you get comfortable with these, you may shortcut a bit, but I'm showing everything just so you can see it all. We calculate 16 times the sine of 35 divided by 10 gives me 0.9177. I'm going to leave that full number in my calculator so I'm not rounding. But we would take the inverse sine of both sides to get C. Do the inverse sine of 0.9177. Again, I just left that in my calculator and I get C is about 66.6 degrees. But remember, because we did inverse sine and found an angle, we have its friend in quadrant 2 that also has that positive sign. And there's a possibility that we find it using that reference angle, that there will be more room for it in the triangle. Okay, so always double check. Okay, let's first find what that angle would be. So if 180, because that's my x-axis, minus 66.6, that reference angle, because remember sine is positive in first and second, so both of these angles have a sine of 0.9177. So we take 180 minus 66.6 and I get 113.4. As always, double check, go back over to your triangle, is there enough room for that angle? So 113.4 plus 35 gives me 148.1. So there's still room, right? Because our total is going to be 180. If we went over 180, we would know it's not possible. But it does work out. So we know, yes, we have two solutions. All right, now let's find both answers. So far, for case 1, I know that C is 66.6. Let's find the B and angle B that would go with that. So set up your pieces again. Again, we're going to do A over sine A, because those are the ones we were given. Okay, so A is 10 over the sine of A, which was 35, equals B. I don't know. The sine of B, what is angle B? If C is 66.6, we need a total of 180 in our triangle, so we can use that fact to find angle B. So I take 180 minus the two angles that are already there, the 35 and 66.6. They are a total of 101.6, so if we subtract that from 180, we have 78.4 degrees left. So I know that angle B would be 78.4 degrees for this case. Okay, just fill in the parts I know so far. So the only thing I'm missing is the side length B. So 10 over the sine of 35, B over the sine of angle B, which we just found was 78.4. Apologize for jumping back and forth there. I'm going to erase this so we have a little room here. All right, how are we going to solve this? Well, if we take both sides times the sine of 78.4, we'll have our answer. Okay, so let's see, lowercase b would be 10 times the sine of 78.4 divided by the sine of 35. Sorry, my handwriting's terrible on this. Apologize for that. And you just put that in your calculator, 10 times the sine of 78.4, and then divide by sine of 35. And you should get about 17.1. So there's one of our answers, our first set of answers. Okay, now let's go get our other set of answers, which would be if C is obtuse and is 113.4. That's one of our answers. Our angle B would be the amount that's left in the triangle. We know angle A, let's try this out a little bit. Okay, so we know C is 113.4 and B is 35. How much is left for angle B in that triangle? If we add 35 to the 113.4, we get 148.4. Subtract that from 180 to find out what's left for angle B in the triangle. We get 31.6. So our angle B in this case would be 31.6. Now let's find our lowercase b for this one. So again, we use A over sine A. So 10 over the sine of 35 equals B, which we don't know, over the sine of 31.6. To solve, we're going to go ahead and multiply both sides by sine 31.6. And then we just have to use our calculator to finish up. So we go 10 times sine 31.6, and then we divide that by the sine of 35. We get 9.1. So we have two sets of answers. Answer 1 is C is 66.6, B is 78.4, and side B is 17.1. Answer set 2 is that angle C is 113.4, B is 31.6, and side B is 9.1. That's what it looks like when you have two solutions.